Hello, I'm Greg Hrutkay of Hrutkay Mods, and today's video is very, very hard to film. In fact, it's taken me 3 times to film this already. The first time I got interrupted when these got delivered to me. This is from the Maciac crew. I want to thank you guys personally. It means a lot to me. The second time I just froze up trying to film it, and I want to shoot it all in one take. So this is the third time. This is a very, very hard video to film for me, because about this time of filming, exactly 1 week ago, exactly this time really, it's almost exactly the time that he went. My dad passed. And I've filmed some hard videos before. The one that comes to mind is the announcement that my grandmother was dying. She hadn't died yet. She died 2 days after I filmed that. I've put it on private, but it's still on my channel. If you want to check it up here, you can. But it's just me crying in front of the camera. You know, I've filmed a few hard videos, but this is definitely going to be the hardest, because probably about this time, as of filming right now, 1 week ago, my dad passed. And he was a very private man, but he was also a very caring man, and he had a lot of people that cared about him. But, you know, he was very generous, very, very generous. He helped a lot of people. Everyone loved him, you know. But he was also kind of secretive, and would only tell certain things, you know. So today's video is a tribute to him. And I'm actually filming it on his phone, because I thought it seemed appropriate. Dad never really liked my videos, but I think he was also proud of this channel because it was finally starting to grow. He even followed me. He'd never would have said that, but, you know, he thought this was kind of a lost cause, I think. He wanted me to do more with my life, which I still plan on doing. But these videos mean a lot to me, and this is good therapy, great therapy for me. Like when I started the Power PC series up, I had joke intros. That was to help me feel better after my grandmother passed. Well, joke intros are kind of gone now. I might do them, but it doesn't do anything for me now. It's just kind of embarrassing. But yeah, my dad, like I said, was a very private man, and this is kind of a PSA. This is not a tech video or anything like that today. Today, it's just for my dad and for you guys to understand what I'm going through right now. I didn't think I'd have to film this video. I thought I had at least another 20 years with the man. But he'd had apparently 4 heart attacks. I thought originally it was 3 in the last 5 years. I think it was 2014 he had his first one, and I was with him. We didn't realize he was having one at the time. He felt really bad for about 3 days, and then he was fine. He had gotten really upset at a family member, and he was purple. You know, he was looking back at it, he was showing a lot of signs that he was having one. We had no clue. And I'm not blaming myself for that, but I should have seen the signs. It happens. You know, we were in a hotel room. He could have died that night when he went to bed, but he didn't. He went on. And about a month or so later, the doctor said, "When did you have your first heart attack?" Because he was going in for a stress test. Because he was very religious for that. He wasn't a very religious man at all. In fact, not at all, really. But he was very religious on going to the doctor. Listening to the doctor is a different story, and we'll get to that. But he went for a stress test. He failed it. Doctor's like, when did you have your first heart attack? And Dad looked back, and that's when we realized what had happened. Well, Dad had, my family's full of people with heart problems. His doctor said then that he should have open heart surgery, but my dad was too afraid to. He'd had my great uncle, I think it was, died on the operating room table in the early 80s, and having his chest cracked open just did not sound fun. So he went for a second opinion, and a third opinion, and a fourth opinion, and he went until he found a doctor that would tell him what he wanted to hear. Because even though he liked going to the doctor to make sure he stayed alive, he didn't listen to him. And yes, I'm mad at my dad. I'm really mad at him. But this is a PSA for anyone who has heart problems. You know, go get help. Don't keep it from people, because you know, if he'd had a bypass then, he'd probably be here today. And I've been saying this over and over again for 3 times already. But anyway, he got stents put in. He felt pretty good, but still not super great. And the doctor prescribed him a bunch of nitro and a lot of other things. And he went on. And in the last few years, I've been having a bit strained relations with my dad. And at some point in between what I thought was his first and second heart attack, he'd had another one that I didn't know about until a few days ago. And now I've got a fly flying here. But anyway, he had another one, maybe 2015 or something. He didn't have anything taken care of on that. And see, my grandfather died at the age of 65. My dad, for the last 20-some years, has been saying, I'm going to die at 65. And I've always told him, no, you're not. You're in great health. You go to the doctor, you'll be fine. But going to the doctor and actually listening to the doctor are 2 different things. So after going to that quack of a doctor, and having that second heart attack and not telling anyone but apparently my uncle, everything was okay. My dad and I had some strained relations through the time, and we were not talking a whole lot. Anytime that I'd talk to him, he was worried about me, and I know that. I just didn't want to talk to him, and I'm going to regret not talking to him. But anyway, getting on to the point. Back in mid-March, Dad, he was a freelance photographer. He went to air shows all the time. He loved doing that. He even used to do it with his own father. And he'd already planned it out, but he had just spent 40 days with his best friend watching his best friend die from a botched surgery. Didn't tell me. I had no clue about his best friend until my dad called me to tell me that he had died. So, yeah. But instead of going to the funeral, he decided to go to the air show. And, it's good therapy, I guess, but he'd also been having problems. For a while, he'd been having a lot of chest pains and stuff. He was telling me about that. And, he still decided to go. And he went to the air show. It was in Florida. It was Titusville, for that air show. And he had his third heart attack. I thought it was his second until a few days ago. He had his third heart attack. He was walking back from the line to go to his car. He was with his friend Robert. And if you're watching, Robert, thank you so much for helping Dad. It means a lot to me. But it was hot out, and it was just not a good day to be shooting. That whole trip, I heard, wasn't a super great trip for shooting pictures. But he was walking back from the line, and his chest was really killing him. He sat down in the parking lot on the back of a golf cart, and he started feeling better after about 20 minutes. Sorry. Anyway, so he went back to the hotel, and the next morning he woke up with a lot of pain in his chest again. And he knew that he knew he needed to get home. He wanted to get home and then go see the doctor. He'd had an appointment like a month later or something like that. He was going to see if he could expedite it. But he lives in West Virginia, and he was in Florida. He drove down there. So he probably wouldn't have made it if he had even been able to do it. But anyway, getting back to where we were, he had a lot of pain. He started putting everything together, packing everything up, decided to take a shower to see if the pain would go away, and it wasn't going away. So this is a little mixed from what I remember him telling me. He called his friend upstairs, who was going home that night, to tell him that he thought he was having a heart attack. And then he called his fiance, which I'd met once before, but I didn't really get to know until I was in Florida with him. And I'm so sorry, Trish. And I didn't even know he was engaged until after he had died, because that's how secretive he could be. Trish meant a lot to him. But anyway, getting on to the point. He then called his fiance to tell her that he was having a heart attack and that he'd keep her updated. He then called 911 and barely could type out 911. They told him to take the aspirin and to go prop the door open. He went over, propped the door open. His friend was there, and I think that was it. He doesn't remember much of anything else. But the doctor had said that he was very lucky. At 95% of the people that have the type of heart attack he had don't come out the back of the ambulance alive. So the hospital they took him to couldn't take care of him. So they took him over to Daytona, to Halifax, one of the best heart places in I guess Florida, or I don't know, but it's a very good hospital. It happens to, I think, be the go-to place for NASCAR and stuff too, when there's an accident and stuff. Anyway, getting off topic again. But he went there. He was very, very afraid. He didn't think he was going to make it. The stents that he had put in had calcified. In fact, the report I read, they said it looks like a stent, aka they weren't really sure if it was even a stent, because he hadn't changed his diet at all. He hadn't really done a whole lot of anything because he wasn't listening to the doctors. But anyway, I drove down there to be with him because I knew I had to be down there. I drove down there as quickly as I could. I spent, even though he didn't want me to, I spent a week and a half with him. He had his 4-way bypass surgery, and he took it great. He wasn't worried after the first few days because he'd actually heard stories from other people who had just had it. And it was a breeze, And today, even though it's a major surgery, 95% of the people that go under the knife for a bypass come out with no problems. And he had a few little problems here and there, but, he was alive, And my dad and I had a really good heart-to-heart in Florida. And last time I saw him was in Florida. So anyway, he spent like a month down there, and then he came back to his house in West Virginia. And the doctor said to take it easy. Not to do anything major, don't lift anything heavy, don't be overexerting yourself and stuff, and just take it easy. And I don't know what was going through my dad's mind. But he went back to what he had been doing. He didn't listen to the doctor. He was supposed to do like 3 months of cardio rehab and let his chest heal up for like 6 months. And the day before he had died, he mowed his entire property. And I'm not talking about a small property. This is a large property. It takes hours to mow. And he went over to see his best friend's wife. He was cold and clammy. And well, I guess best friend's widow. It was that best friend. And he said, call me in the morning to make sure I'm still alive. He didn't tell any of us that he was not doing well, because we would have made sure he got to the hospital that day. Okay? But he pushed himself really hard. And I'd been texting him. I texted him that morning on Friday, exactly 1 week ago, as of filming this. I texted him. He wanted, he'd been having me go to a family friend who was up where I am, a heart specialist here. He was having his bypass done. He wanted me to, reassure the family friend. He had talked him through it. He said, this is no big deal. You're going to recover and you'll be doing great. And I'm sure he will do great. He came out of it. He had some problems, but he's going to do great, because I know he'll listen to the doctor. But anyway, I'd been talking to him because one of my friends' mothers, his other best friend's wife, got a pacemaker put in. It was a defibrillator put into her chest that day. And he wanted me to call my friend and make sure that he was okay and tell him that everything would be fine. And then a few hours later, we had another text where we talked about school. And I'd been keeping a lot of things about school secret from him, and only him. I finally told everyone else. But I hadn't actually told my own father because I knew he wasn't going to take it well. But I didn't reveal anything that would have upset him. He just thought I was graduating, which I'm not graduating yet. I will be, but not yet. I told him I was taking a few more classes and, I'd graduate soon. And don't know how he took it, but he finished texting me. I went to work, and his fiance had came over to, like she did every Friday, to spend the weekend with him. And he always had the lights on for her, and you know, he was always there for her when she'd show up. She showed up, the lights weren't on, he wasn't there. And she didn't think a whole lot of it at the time, but she started to panic after, you know, she did her normal routine. She was waiting for him. He hadn't told her he was going anywhere. He hadn't told any of us. My dad uses his phone, which I'm filming this on. My dad used his phone more than I used my own phone. You know, he's 59, and he uses his phone a lot more than me. She couldn't get a hold of him. He wouldn't respond. And she was panicking. So his other friend, the husband of the wife that just had the defibrillator put in, she called him. And he had been the same guy that drove him up from Florida back to West Virginia. And I thank you a whole lot, Greg. That's his friend. He's like an uncle to me. But Greg tried to get a hold of him. He couldn't get a hold of him. He started panicking. He called me at work and tried to put it out there carefully. You know, your dad's, we can't find your dad. You know, and I knew something wasn't right. So I started looking for him. I started panicking. I called my mother. I'm like, Dad's missing. We don't know where he is. He hasn't talked to anyone since 2 p.m. So I left work early that day. And we spent hours that night figuring out where he would be. We finally decided to have the fiance call 911. She called 911. My mother called me and said, did you guys ever think about checking next door? He had this guest house next door where he stored his van and a few other things. So I texted her, have you checked next door? About this time, my best friend, who also happens to be a volunteer firefighter, had messaged me and asked, what's going on? Because he'd gotten an APB to be on the lookout for his car. And then he said, oh, don't worry. We found, it got canceled, okay? It's because they'd found his car. And everything was pending. He didn't know exactly what's going on yet. So I thought everything had been canceled because they'd found him and he was fine. But I texted him that the APB wasn't exactly right and what had happened. He'd been missing since 2. He said, call me. Alan, I thank you for telling me, and just telling me straight up. He hadn't been there yet. He was a backup responder, so he told me what he could. But he said they had heard on the radio that he was cold to the touch and he had blue lips, and they found him in his garage. That's when my world changed. My world changed forever that one moment, because I knew he was gone. You know, he said, "I'll call you back. The ambulance is on its way. They'll do everything they can." And I just lost it. And what had happened is, I guess around 3:30 that day, he had decided to go next door to pull the van out of the garage for some reason. And it's been exactly a week now since he died. But he went over there, he pulled the van out, he had the garage door open, and he must have started feeling not well. He had the air conditioner on full blast. He put it in park. I don't know if he was trying to get out in the van or what happened. He'd tried to get a phone call out around 3:45. They found him behind the wheel, slumped over the steering wheel. Van still running, sitting outside in front of the garage with the driver's side door open. So I just had to make this video for you guys, because I also want to just tell you guys, don't keep secrets from the people you love. If you think you're having a heart problem, go see the doctor. You know, the worst thing they can say, and the best thing they can say really, is you're just having a panic attack or something. You're fine. But it doesn't hurt to go. My dad didn't listen to his doctor. Listen to your doctor. If your doctor says take it easy, take it easy. My dad didn't do that. What got him was probably a blood clot that he worked loose from the surgery. He had been having blood clot problems, and the blood clot probably just stopped everything. I'm in a lot of pain, guys, because I don't know what to do. The doctor said when he came out of the surgery, it was, he had had a second chance of life. He'd had a second chance at life. He could have made it another 20 years. He had basically had a new heart. But he was healing, and he pushed himself. So last week, I had to plan my father's funeral at the age of 27. He was only 59. I had to make all the important decisions for the funeral. I had his fiance and my mother, but I had to do it because I was the only next of kin, you know. He was too young, and if he'd listened, he'd be here. He'd be healing. In a few months, he would have felt great. You know, he would have been around for his grandchildren that he'll never get to see. And no, I don't have any planned on coming anytime soon, but he would have been here for them. He would have outlived his father, no doubt in my mind, but he didn't listen to his doctor. And I'm sorry, guys, this is such a long, depressing video. But I'm never going to put this on private. This is here for anyone that's hurting. I know how you feel. This is here for anyone that's afraid of having heart surgery. Don't be. It's not that big of a deal anymore. The advances in medicine is so vast. You shouldn't have any problems. Everything should be great. You'll be out, and you'll be living life in no time. It's been 1 week. Anyway, I thought you guys should watch this video. I needed to make this video. It's great therapy for me to be able to talk to you guys. Hrutkay Mods will still be around. It's going to be spotty for a while because I've got to take care of his affairs. Balance a lot of things, and I'll probably be moving from here by the end of the summer with my girlfriend. So I won't be able to film a whole lot. But I'm going to still be rolling out quality content until I can't. And when I finally am fully moved, I'll be coming back for even more content. I've got at least 2 more videos coming, guys. Stick around for those. I'm not going to be doing any sponsored things right now. This is all for my dad. I love you guys. Each and every one of my supporters. I love you, Dad. I really do. I wish you had listened and you hadn't pushed yourself. And I wish you had told me exactly how bad off you were, because he even had other health problems that he didn't tell me, that I found out after he died about. I found out about him then. He was keeping a lot from me. And I'd kept a big secret from him, which will haunt me for a long time. But it's the past now. I can't do anything about it. So don't keep secrets from your family, your loved ones. If you understood how bad it hurts to know that you'll never be able to tell the truth. Yeah. It's not worth it. Just be honest. You know, especially when it comes to stuff like medical, you know. Don't just let your loved ones find out about it after you're gone. Tell them now. Get help. Because life is worth living. My dad used to say stuff like, life sucks and then you die. It's one of his favorite sayings. But there's more to life than that. Life doesn't suck. Life's what you make it. My dad lived his life to the fullest. But he could have lived a lot longer if he'd just listened. And he didn't. I love you, Dad. And thank you guys for watching. This has been a Hrutkay Mods video.